Hello everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be exploring ancient Greece, specifically Socrates and Plato, and how Socrates, with his relentless pursuit of truth through questioning, laid the groundwork for philosophical inquiry. His student Plato also expanded on these ideas, weaving a complex tapestry. However, more important to our cause, we will explore how this drove a wedge between the realms of rationality and imagination. Socrates was born around 470 BC in Athens, and he was a pivotal figure in the history of Western philosophy. One of his most intriguing ideas is what we call the epistemology of ignorance. Epistemology is a word that we use when we want to talk about the system that governs how we claim to know what we know. Socrates is known for his Socratic method, and he emphasized the importance of questioning, critical thinking, and rational inquiry. He sought to uncover the truth by stripping away assumptions, delving into the essence of knowledge through dialectical dialogue. The Oracle of Delphi once said that Socrates is the wisest man because it is he who knows that he knows nothing. This captures the essence of his epistemology of ignorance. He wasn't claiming literal ignorance, but rather emphasizing the awareness of the limits of human knowledge. Socrates engaged in the famous Socratic method, a form of cooperative or argumentative dialogue. He didn't provide answers, but he asked probing questions, guiding others to discover the truth for themselves. Socrates believed that true wisdom lies in recognizing one's own lack of knowledge. In a world where many claim to possess wisdom, he stood out by embracing intellectual humility. His philosophy encourages us to question, to explore, and to remain open-minded. Next, we look at Plato, who responded to his mentor with what could possibly be termed the epistemology of precision. Plato, in his dialogues like the Republic and Theaetetus, grappled with the challenges presented by Socrates. He agreed with Socrates that knowledge was crucial, but he sought a more precise understanding of it. Plato was concerned with the ephemeral nature of knowledge obtained through dialogue alone. Socrates' method of questioning, while insightful, often left conclusions open-ended, as we can see in Meno, where the titular character of Meno ultimately concludes the dialogue by walking off and going to court. Plato, on the contrary, aimed to establish a more systematic and defined approach to knowledge. And so we get Plato's famous theory of forms. He proposed that the physical world we see is a mere reflection of a higher non-physical realm of perfect forms or ideas. These forms, according to Plato, represent the ultimate reality, and they are unchanging, eternal, and precise. Now, we know Plato had a lot to say about knowledge, reality, and justice, but he also had a bone to pick with poetry. Specifically, he took issue with the works of the legendary Homer. In Plato's ideal state, as presented in the Republic, he overtly rejects poetry as a means of acquiring knowledge. Plato believed that poetry, including the epics of Homer, appealed to the emotions rather than to reason, leading people away from the pursuit of true wisdom. Plato argued that poetry, with its vivid storytelling and emotional impact, could distort reality. He felt that relying on such emotional narratives hindered the development of rational and critical thinking. Consider how Plato linked poetry and hero worship to the unfortunate fate of his mentor Socrates. Plato suggests in the Apology that the influence of poets and their heroic tales played a role in the condemnation of Socrates, whom you may recall was famously executed by being forced to drink hemlock by reasons of being a nuisance to civil society and corrupting the youth of Athens. By shaping public opinion and ideals, poetry contributed to a society that was less inclined to appreciate the Socratic method of questioning and rational inquiry. Plato felt that hero worship, often propagated through poetry, led to an uncritical acceptance of certain values, contributing to the misunderstanding and eventual death of Socrates. Although Plato did have his reservations about poetry, there is another perspective that celebrates the power of storytelling in shaping our understanding of the world. Literary critic Northrop Frye once said that literature educates the emotions, helps us to grow in understanding and compassion. This encapsulates the idea that poetry and stories serve as crucial tools for edification. Edification can be broadly described as the process where we turn the unknown and unimagined into that which is known and is part of our real world. Poetry and stories provide us with a unique lens through which we can explore diverse perspectives, cultures, and experiences. They foster empathy by allowing us to step into the shoes of characters and understand their motivations, challenges, and triumphs. Classic works of literature, from the epics of Homer to the tragedies of Shakespeare, have shaped our collective consciousness. They tackle complex themes, moral dilemmas, and the human condition, challenging us to reflect on our own beliefs and values. The power of metaphor in poetry, for instance, can distill complex ideas into vivid and reliable images, making abstract concepts more accessible. This, in turn, aids in the expansion of our intellectual and emotional capacities. Take, for example, Plato's allegory of the cave. It is a powerful metaphorical exploration that uses storytelling to convey complex philosophical concepts. The imaginative narrative serves as a vehicle for understanding the transition from the world of illusions to the world of true knowledge. For those who are not familiar, the allegory of the cave is a story told by Plato to try and communicate the difference between the world of illusions, our real world, and the world of the forms. In the story, he depicts several people who are strapped to a cave wall and are unable to look around, only seeing the shadows cast by a flame in front of them. An individual who somehow escapes, and upon returning to the cave, tries to describe his experiences of the surface world and the sun. Of course, he is not understood by those who are still trapped in the cave. And this is a metaphor and allegory that at once illustrate Plato's point, but also goes a long way to critiquing it. Now consider how fiction, especially in the realm of scientific fiction, has often foreshadowed or inspired real scientific advancement. Think, for example, of Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon or Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey. These works of fiction, fueled by imagination, laid the groundwork for scientific exploration and discovery, the latter of which has had a famous film adaptation made of it. In fact, we could probably trace modern AI advancements to the inspiration that came from that film. The poetry, fiction, and the imagination, with its ability to distill complex emotions and experiences into evocative language, can also deepen our connection with the physical world. By engaging with poetic descriptions of nature, we can gain a richer, more nuanced understanding of the world around us. Here we've looked very briefly at the philosophical landscapes that have been shaped by Plato and Socrates, and explored the tension between rationality and imagination, and even delved into the enriching power of poetry and fiction. Acknowledging the value that each brings to our understanding of the world, whether we're navigating the Socratic method, pondering allegories of caves, or immersing ourselves in the beauty of storytelling. It is, at last, clear that the pursuit of wisdom remains a dynamic and multifaceted journey.